Okay, come on. Kick in, stream. There it goes. Okay. Starting to wonder if it was going to work or not. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Herbalism and More. I am your host, Ravenwings, and tonight I want to cover some information about tinctures and decoctions and elixirs and stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to be covering tonight. And hi, Bonnie. Glad you could make it. Tonight, before I start anything, I don't claim to be a doctor or an herbalist. I do recommend highly that you go see your doctor if you're sick. Do not take any kind of tincture, tea, anything without checking with your doctor first, especially if you're on medication, because medication can have an effect on it, so you want to keep that in mind. And keep in mind that people can react to tinctures in different ways. Just because it works well for someone, it may not work well for you, so it's not a guaranteed cure for serious ailments. Excuse me. And it's not a good idea to mix and match them without having some kind of knowledge. It's important that you find an actual herbalist or naturopath, you know, to help you with that kind of thing, and get their advice before attempting to self-diagnose and self-medicate. Herbs have medicinal properties that may have different effects on those who take them, so it's vital that you want to make sure that you know what it is that you're treating before you make or take anything. Excuse me, I have the worst cold. It's also important that you know exactly what plant you're using if you decide to make a tincture for your own use. Going out and just foraging for leaves and twigs that, you know, resemble what you're looking for is a good way to poison yourself. So unless you have total certainty about the plant you're using, don't use it, because when in doubt, it's better to err on the side of caution than to, you know, make something that you're going to hurt yourself with. So, a tincture. God, I am so sorry. A tincture is a type of herbal preparation in where you have alkaloids, minerals, essential oils of the plants, and they're extracted into a solvent. The liquids that are most often used are high-proof alcohols such as vodka or brandy. Occasionally you can use apple cider if you're non-alcoholic and you don't want to use the 150 proof alcohol. You can use an apple cider vinegar or even a vegetable glycerin to make them with. The latter, the vegetable glycerin, is sometimes used if you're making it for children's preparations and for those who are abstaining from alcohol. They're just not as effective at drawing the medicinal components from the plants. So be aware that they're not going to be as strong as they would if you're doing it with the alcohol. A single dose of a tincture has the same effect as a cup of herbal tea. It's just that it's concentrated and absorbed more easily into your body via the alcohol. Some of the tinctures have medicinal properties, while others have nutritional benefits, depending on what you're making. If you are going to make your own, and you're going to make them with the alcohol base, you want to get a really good, I like a really good vodka to use to make tinctures with, a really strong, good vodka. This will make it longer lasting. But you can make it with like glycerin, vinegar, or even honey to make a syrup. So if you're trying to make a cough syrup, which I'll probably be doing soon, you can make that with honey. If you're going to make them yourself, you'll need the following supplies. A clear glass jar, at least a pint size with a lid. What I've found is mason jars work awesome for this. Consumable alcohol, like vodka, rum, has to be at least 80 proof. At least 80 proof. The higher the proof, the better the drawing of the herbs. Apple cider vinegar or food grade vegetable glycerin will also work. And herbs of your choice, whatever herbs you're going to be working with. It's incredibly easy to make tinctures, by the way. Excuse me again. You literally just need to soak your plant matter in the solvent for a few weeks so all the good stuff can be absorbed into the liquid. Vodka is usually the best choice. You can use brandy or rum. It has to be 80 proof though, either way, to prevent mildewing and stuff like that. 100 proof is even better, but you know, hey, yeah. The higher the proof of the alcohol, it acts as a preservative. So if you're storing your tinctures in a cool, dark place, they can have a shelf life of up to 7 to 10 years. So these are going to last a lot longer than other things because they're made with the alcohol. I wouldn't say they're going to last 7 to 10 years with the apple cider vinegar, but yeah, the alcohol will keep them fresher. If you're using fresh herbs to do this, you want to chop them up a bit or bruise them with like a mortar and pestle. And I don't know, let me see. Ouch, as I trip over everything. For those out there who do not know what a mortar and pestle is, this is a mortar and pestle. What is in there? Oh, coffin nail. But yeah, a couple of coffin nails. This is a mortar and pestle. And that's what I use, obviously, to grind herbs. If you're doing them for edible reasons, if you're making this tincture to actually take, I can't use this one. I can use a spoon and a bowl, but I can't use that one because I use that one for everything. So I have herbs that have been ground in there that you can't take internally. So I use this one specifically for something else. But you'll be able to put enough of that fresh herb to fill your jar about 3/4 of the way full. You don't want to pack it too tightly though. It should fill the jar well, but loose enough to be able to move around. You want to leave a little headroom in the jar so that when you need to cover the plant matter completely with the alcohol, no part of the plant should be exposed to air. You'll fill that jar with the alcohol to the spot the lid ring begins, and then screw on your lid. For dried herbs, you want to fill your pint jar halfway, and then fill it with alcohol the same way you did with fresh herbs. The reason you have to use less dry root than fresh, the reason you have to use less dry root than fresh is the fact that, you know, your alcohol will partially reconstitute plant matter, so it will cause it to swell. The dried stuff will swell up, and you'll need to leave some room for that to happen. So you want to make sure that, you know, the dried root, be sure to stir that dried root really well so it absorbs all the liquid too. Your general ratio of fresh herbs to alcohol is 1 to 2, so 1 part plant, 2 parts alcohol, and dried is 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. There are exceptions to that rule, so don't go on that, because sometimes different dry herbs you need different amounts. So, but that's the go-to for now. You always want to make labels for your jars and date them, and then let them steep in a cool, dark place. If you have a basement, that's great. That's a great place to do it. Otherwise, I would not do them in the kitchen, because what happens is it gets hot in there, or the bathroom. Also gets hot when people take a shower. So you want to find a room that stays cooler. If you have, like up north, people have mud rooms and stuff like that, you can put them in a mud room. If not, someplace you know that's going to be cooler and darker is where you want to put those. During the first week, you're going to want to give that jar a shake every day, just to swish the alcohol around in the plant matter, moving around a little bit. And then you'll just let it sit in the cupboard, or wherever, for another 5 weeks or so. So you want it to steep for 6 weeks total. After it has steeped for at least 6 weeks, you can line a fresh metal strainer with a layer or two of muslin or cheesecloth, something like that, and then hold that over a bowl or a measuring cup and pour the tincture over the cloth so that it strains well. You can, if you're using especially cheesecloths, you can squeeze the cheesecloth afterwards and get all the liquid out. So you want to use as much as you can. And you can compost the used plant matter and wash out the cloth and use it again. So it's not like you're wasting anything. You can use it for compost after. After you've done all of that, that's it. You've made your tincture. That is your tincture. With that, though, there are different ones you can make. If you want to use for children, for example, to promote a restful sleep and good for their skin, is a chamomile tincture. That one works really well for children and such. Give me a minute here. My computer is not cooperating with me, and I'm not exactly sure why. And it's... my mortar and pestle is now in my way. Where did my chat just disappeared? Everything just disappeared. This is the fun part of live shows. There it is. Okay. Just didn't want to lose it anywhere. There are different ones. You can check with your libraries. Most libraries actually take, you know, and they do actually have herbal sections and stuff, a lot of them in the libraries, so you can check in there. How to use an herbal tincture. That's what I wanted to get into. I knew there was something. A standard adult dose would be to take a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon 3 times a day as needed. Kids normally only get 1/4 to 1/3, but like I've said before, you want to make sure that you talk to your doctor first, you know, just in case, God forbid, you know, that they're allergic to something, because certain, you know, plants can cause allergic reactions too. So for children, pregnant women, or those who don't want to consume alcohol, it can be poured into a hot tea to evaporate the alcohol before consuming it. Excuse me. Now we're going to get into decoctions. This is a concentrated brew made by gently simmering tougher forms or parts of herbs, like the roots, the barks, woody stems. It is different than an infusion, which is concentrated by steeping, not simmering, the more delicate parts of an herb, such as leaves, flowers, stems, stuff like that. You might say that a decoction is a really concentrated herbal tea, is basically what a decoction is. They're very easy to make. It's just like making a cup of tea. You want to bring water to a boil in a heavy pot. You're going to measure out the herbs that you're going to use. 1 teaspoon of dried or 2 teaspoons of fresh per 1 cup of water. I almost said coffee. You want to add the herbs to the water and reduce the heat so that the water is simmering, and leave those herbs simmer gently for 15 to 20 minutes, and then you can strain out the herbs. This is just, it's very similar to making a tea. There are many herbs that you can use for wonderful decoctions, and I'm going to give you a list of few, but remember, please check with your doctor first, because herbs can be very dangerous. Burdock root is used for liver support. Yellow dock root is used for anemia and also can be used as a mild laxative. Dandelion root is good for cleaning your liver. Licorice is for irritable bowel syndrome, adrenaline fatigue, and digestive issues, but that's one of those ones that you absolutely do not want to touch when you're pregnant. Ginseng root is great for supporting hormonal balance, fatigue, and digestive weakness. Cinnamon is great for digestions, cold, and generally warming the body. And cinnamon actually is really good for that. I've noticed that the older I get, I'm cold all the time. And cinnamon will actually warm you up. It's really... cinnamon has a lot of uses that I'll get into in many shows. Slippery elm bark This is used for soothing ulcers and coughs and diarrhea. And chicory root can be used to improve skin health. Excuse me again. There are more than just the tea type ways to make uses for decoctions. You can use these in baths. They can be added to your bath to create a soothing and therapeutic soak. You simply prepare 2 to 3 quarts of a decoction, strain out the herbs, add the remaining liquid to a tub full of water, like warm water, soak for like 20 minutes. And it's an easy way to use the healing herbs and their properties for someone who doesn't want to drink them, or is too ill, or is too young. So yeah, you want to do that kind of thing. But please understand that these can be absorbed through your skin. So, you know, if you have an allergic reaction, this is why I say check with your doctor first. Compresses. Decoctions can also be used as compresses. They're applied to the skin, directly to the skin. And to make a compress, you want to soak a clean cloth in warm, not hot decoction, and then squeeze out the excess liquid. Apply the cloth to the affected area and allow it to stay there until it's cooled, and keep repeating it as necessary. This is good for cuts, scrapes, burns, bruises. People have used it for psoriasis with different things. But like I said, you want to check with a doctor first, or an herbalist if you have an herbalist in your area, just to be on the safe side so that you don't do anything that could harm you. Bear with me. Wine, nectar of the gods. Okay, now I'm going to give you 4 herbal decoction tips and tricks. You always want to start with cold water. It's just like boiling eggs. I've always warned people, if you're going to boil eggs, start with cold water. You don't want to start with hot water. So it's important that you start them with cold water and place the herbs directly into boiling water. Placing the herbs directly into boiling water may cause a reaction within the plant cells to bind it and make it difficult for other plant constitutes to go out through the water. So you want to make sure that you start with cold water. Use more herbs when you're using fresh herbs, obviously. You can grind your herbs before you use them as well. Many herbalists like to grind, crush, or even powder their herbs before they decoct them, only because it increases the surface area of the herb, so it makes it much easier to get what you want out of the herb itself. You can combine herbs that are best prepared as a decoction with herbs that do best as infusions. You want to decoct your hard woody herbs in a pot of water, and then add the remaining herbs to the pot when you remove it from the heat to cool. Be sure you keep that pot covered, and then you can let all the herbs infuse together until you're ready to drink it. So if you're doing a decoction with licorice root and you want to add chamomile in with that, you would do your decoction first. After you take it off the heat, then you would add your chamomile in, and then lid it and let it steep just like you would a tea. And that way you can use the two together. There are a lot of benefits to decoctions. They're enjoyed more as like a strong herbal tea. They can also be used as a base for an herbal syrup, or you can use them for fermentation, which is the same thing as your compresses. I have a few different things. I can find it here. Elderberry syrup, if you can make elderberry syrup. It is becoming a staple in many homes during cold and flu season, and the recipe is quick, easy, and tasty. So if you look up elderberry syrup, you can find that recipe. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'll post it on the Herbalism and More page, group page in Facebook. There are anti-immune boosting herbs that you use for antioxidants. You can do iron-rich root tinctures with molasses. I'll see if I can find some of these. I do have some of these. I just have to look them up. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with these. Herbal infusions are like teas on steroids, but good steroids. You'll get the maximum benefits from all the herbs in a more concentrated solution. So it also makes it easier for you to take. Similar to tea, you steep dry herbs in hot water and allow to soak together. These are more potent, however, because they get steeped for a longer period of time. To make herbal infusions, you need your dried herbs of choice, which would be your flowers or leafy herbs. You know, you don't want to use your stems or sticks or roots for this. A mason jar or any airtight jar. I prefer mason jars. Cheesecloth or a tea strainer. You'll need a bowl, you'll need a ladle, a hot pad, that sort of thing. What you do is you pour your dried herbs into a jar, then you add your hot water. Excuse me, the water should be on like a low boil. You don't want a rapid boil. And you want to make sure you use a hot pad underneath your jar for safety. You can use the ladle to help direct the flow of the water into the jar, so it'll prevent breakage. That's another reason why I like using mason jars, because they're set up for that. Or you can use a funnel if you need to. The infusion process is basically seal that jar tight. I can't speak. And you want to allow it to sit for 4 to 10 hours. It's much easier if you make this during the day and let them sit overnight. Because you want to keep like your cats, pets, kids away from the jar, because the jar is going to be hot. But I'll normally make this sit around, you know, anywhere between 4 and 7 o'clock at night, and let it sit until 4 and 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. You know, 10 to 12 hours for me, but 4 to 10 is the actual time strain that you need. Once that happens, you're going to strain that into a new jar or over a bowl using a cheesecloth or a strainer, and you want to make sure you squeeze everything out of that herb when you get it done, and then it's ready to drink. So, you know, you can drink these. That's it, it's ready now. It will last about 3 days. So if you can't drink it fast enough, you can pour them back into the earth, or you can use them in your next bath. Never let it go to waste, though. There's a lot of things you can do, you know. So herbs that are suitable for this would be peppermint. That's great for soothing an upset stomach. Nettle is a tonic for the whole body. Nettle mint tea relieves allergies. Basil to reduce stress. Red clover will boost the immune system. And chamomile to promote relaxation, which we all know chamomile is great for that. So, you know, these are some of the things you can do that way. There is an herbal infusion in oil that you can make as well. Oils can be used as salad dressings. They can be used as cooking oils. Herb-infused oils are the base of many natural body care products, such as healing salves, ointments, and balms. So if you're making body care products, oils such as olive or sweet almond are both excellent oils that you can infuse. Olive oil is best if you plan to make a salad dressing. You don't really want to use the sweet almond so much for the salad dressing. But to infuse your oil with herbs, if you're going to use it for something like that, you'll place 1/3 of a cup of dried herbs into a quart-sized jar. And the jar and the herbs and utensils and everything have to be dry when you do this, because moisture could spoil the oil. You want to cover the herbs with the oil, then add 1 to 2 inches more of the oil so that the herbs have room to expand, because like we said before, dry herbs, when they get moist, swell up. So the herbs will swell up as they absorb that oil. You're going to tightly close that jar and label it so you don't forget what's inside it. Because believe it or not, I've done it. I've forgotten what I've put in a jar before. This is why I'm pretty anal about labeling and dating everything now. Because you're looking at it going, I know what this is. I really do. I just can't remember. Yeah. So after you do that, you want to place the jar in a warm place and leave it there for 2 weeks. So opposed to leaving it in a cool, drier, darker place, this one you want to put in a warm place. So this one would be good to put above your stove, for example, and that's another thing I'll get into later. If possible, you want to give that jar a good shake every day. Once the 2 or more weeks are over, you strain out the herbs and you can pour the infused oil into a clean jar. You want to use herb infused oils more quickly. If you need to infuse an oil with herbs quicker too, you can place the above amount of herbs and oil in a small crock pot or in a jar or within a dehydrator. Warm it on a very low heat, no more than 104 degrees, and let it sit for 1 to 3 hours. This method is somewhat inferior to the techniques, you know, of actually letting it sit for the 2 weeks, but because the heat diminishes the quality of the herbs, but it will work if you need to hurry up and use one in a pinch. Herbal salves. You can use herb infused oil to prepare salves to treat various skin conditions. So you can use 4 ounces of your infused oil with 1 ounce of beeswax in a double boiler. You warm it over low heat until the beeswax melts, and then you pour it into tins or heat-safe jars, such as small canning jars. This will make your salves. Some of the favorite herbal salves are calendula, plantation, and lavender. Those are some of the favorite ones. The herbs in your kitchen, if you want to infuse these oils for cooking or to use in a salad dressing or whatever, then you want to stick with more of your cooking type, which would be basil, oregano, or thyme. Olive oil is wonderful if you plan to make it as a salad dressing. So, you know, if you're going to just use it as a salad dressing, you can do it that way. You can infuse vinegar as well. You want to combine 2 cups of vinegar with 1 cup of fresh herbs. If you're using dried herbs, you want to use a half a cup. So it's basically half of what you use for fresh. You want to loosely pack those herbs and vinegar in a jar and leave it to infuse for about 3 weeks. You can use infused vinegar in salad dressings and also skincare treatments. So if, you know, you're making something to do with skincare, this is another thing you can use it for. How to make a healing honey water. Because a lot of people like to drink infused waters as well, and that has become really big. There is a honey water. It's a honey health benefits are well known. And it's true, because honey lasts forever. Just, if you get real honey, it's going to last forever. The mixture, when you mix honey with water, has been used for ever. As a purpose for treating different types of diseases, as well as using it for cosmetic purposes. It was frequently used during various kinds of celebration as a drink that tastes deliciously as well. So you mix 1 teaspoon of raw honey with 1 glass of lukewarm water. In this way you get 30% solution of honey, which is identical to plasma in its composition. Honey forms a compound in the water which increases the healing ability of the water itself, and this has been scientifically proven. So, the mixture of water and honey is quickly absorbed by the body, and the honey water will improve your digestion, all parts of your gastrointestinal tract, and it boosts up the work of the lazy intestines. So, if you have lazy intestines, great thing. It also improves immunity and cures colds and bronchitis. That's why honey in your tea and stuff, yeah, that was probably one of the main reasons they would tell you that. All of the parasites found in the human digestive tract dislike yellow color. With the help of that healing water, you can cleanse your intestines of any... You can clean them all out of, like, feces deposits and stuff like that. If you're gaining weight, and you're in the beginning of the process of gaining weight, don't panic, because fecal stones can actually cause swelling. So this is the beginning stage of them getting out of your body. In time, the colon works to start normalizing. Consuming this water will restore the intestinal microflora. You know, I hear a lot about the microflora lately. And by drinking this water, you can say goodbye to uncontrolled night urination. And if you're old like me, and you get up 3-4 times a night, yeah, it'd be nice to say yes to goodbye. Let me sleep. So, honey collects water, so kidneys and bladder are not overworked during the night. Honey water should be consumed early in the morning, however, on an empty stomach, because our body does absorb the most in this time of the day. It also has healing powers that should be consumed both early in the morning and late in the evening before you go to bed, so you want to drink this while it's fresh as well. This mixture will nourish the skin, so you can use it to wash your face with. And it also acts as an amazing natural cosmetic and has been used for ancient times. Healing water. We're going to do a little bit of history. The search for the fountain of youth has been around since the days of ancient Greece and the Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized. It is said to have restorative powers from Mexico to China to Australia. Specific water sources have been credited with curing all sorts of ailments. And it's true. I mean, they've found different waters in different areas that are good for different things. I lived in Colorado, at a place called Durango, Colorado, which was western Colorado. We had hot springs. So in the middle of winter, as a kid, we would go camping and go to these natural hot springs and go sit in these hot springs. And these hot springs were amazing. Your skin came out so soft. If you had the beginning stages of a cold, it was gone. So there are different places that have different water that's good for curing different things. Just as if you have things wrong with your feet, actual salt water, ocean water, can be really good to soak your feet in, because it will help. If you're bleeding, however, I would suggest not soaking your feet in that kind of water, because it'll attract sharks. So healing crystals. This is another way you can do waters as well. They've been used for equally as long time to relieve energy and spiritual blockages, but, you know, quartz is one of the most used ones. It's a physical, spiritual connection that works with quartz. You can do an herbed water recipe by boiling 4 cups of filtered water with your herb of choice in a pot or a heat-proof container. You want to pour the boiling water over the herbs and allow it to steep until it's cold. Add 4 cups of fresh filtered water and then transfer that water and herbs to a pitcher or a large mason jar and chill it. That's it. That's all you need to do with that. You can make more or less in the amount. Just follow the 1-to-1 ratio. Some of the good things that you can use to do the herb water is rosemary, 2 to 3 stems about 6 inches long, thyme, 5 to 6 good stems, sage, 10 to 12 large leaves, mint, handful, basil, handful, ginger. You can use ginger with this, 2-inch piece of ginger thinly sliced. You can also make cucumber or melon water by slicing up 1 medium organic cucumber or a few cups of melon and placing it in a large pitcher and then filling it with filtered water and allowing it to steep in the fridge for a few hours and drink. They have a lot of bottles out there now for infused water where you can put your stuff right in the bottle and your water and it infuses. if you do this with the cucumbers, you can add water to it all week long. So if you do a picture of it with the cucumbers, you can keep adding it for a week before you have to recycle the cucumbers. Elixirs, that was the other thing I wanted to get into. This is where your crystals and quartzes and stones come in. Making an elixir is basically alchemy. It is dangerous. It is not, this is not herbalism. This is not, you know, you're not going to go to an herbalist or a person who does holistic medicine or something like that. Elixirs have to do with alchemy. So unless you're going to an actual alchemist or you have an alchemy background, elixirs are very, you know, they can always be dangerous. Until it's fixed and it's stable, it can always be volatile. You can get hurt during the process of creating one, so you want to be careful. You know, you really want to be careful if you're making elixirs. And there is a strong alcohol content, which shouldn't be a problem if you're over the age of 21. However, if you're not over the age of 21, I would highly suggest not using this at all. Also, elixirs are not for the impatient. Sometimes it can take up to 40 days to make an elixir, a month or two to complete. So yeah, it takes patience and time. This is not a weekend project. This is not, you know, if you're going to make elixirs, this is not, okay, I'm going to make it, you know, today and have it tomorrow. It's not how it works. Some of the materials that you can use and the ingredients are the mortar and pestle, like I showed you. Mason jars. I love mason jars. Mason jars are awesome. Nylon stockings or cheesecloth. You can use either or. Rubber gloves, aluminum foil, silk cloth, or if you can't find silk cloth, a silk tie, and your herb of choice, whatever herb you're going to be working with, and a potable alcohol such as Everclear. These are the 190 proof. These are the higher, stronger alcohols. Vodka can be substituted, but you want to, like I said, go with the higher volume of alcohol. A fire pit or grill, a lighter, a warm and dark place to store your elixir in, dropper bottles, coffee filters, and funnels are all great to have. Makes life a lot easier. And these take time to make, so, you know, you don't want to make these and then determine that you want to take them the next day. That's not how it works. Your first thing would be planning. You want to pick an herb for its medicinal value or whatever else. Like rosemary is the easiest herb to master because rosemary is the go-to herb. It helps as a topical disinfectant, and it helps wounds heal faster without disinfecting them, and it's a lot faster than Neosporin. So, and it can also help with stomach and bowel problems too. So let's say we're going to take rosemary as our herb. You have to find its planetary ruler. It's the planet that the thing resonates with most. Rosemary resonates with the sun most. So with that in mind, you can deduce it's a Sunday herb. So during the construct of the creation of the herb, we must work on a Sunday to have the most powerful effect. Alchemy deals a lot more with the way things have to be done. A Sunday herb would be created on Sunday, a Saturday herb on Saturday, because that's when you're going to get the most potency from that herb. So now you know what day you're going to be working on. You have to find a specific time. For this, you want to look at your moon. A waning moon is great for using, you know, to remove the impurity from the pure. You look for a waning moon that falls on a Sunday, if you're using rosemary, for example. Once you find the date, mark it, and look for that date 2 weeks before on the marked date, and that's the date you start the creation. So you want to, like I said, alchemy is a little harder. You're doing actual elixirs with alchemy. Once you've found your dates and figured out what herb you want to start working on it, and you obtain the herb you want, it's preferred to use an herb that is hand-picked and dried, but it isn't a problem to use a commercially bought herb. You want to use 2 to 3 ounces of that herb, depending on the herb. Peppermint, for example, is an incredibly light herb, so 2 to 3 ounces would be a lot of that herb. So it depends on what herb you're working with, but 2 to 3 ounces of an herb. You want to grind those up into the finest powder possible. Do this any way you see fit. I've found that coffee grinders, people who use the little coffee grinders, and I guess there are little tobacco style, marijuana style grinders you can use as well. You know, or a mortar and a pestle, you know, whatever is easiest for you. Some people have problems with their hands and can't use a mortar and a pestle, so whatever would be the easiest way for you to do it would be the easiest way to do it. Then you have to grind up enough herb to make about 1/2 centimeter at the bottom of that mason jar. So make sure you're grinding up enough herb. Don't overgrind, but don't undergrind either. Digestion is the process of incubation for this. The digestion process adds alcohol to the herb until you have 2 fingers width of alcohol. Be absolutely sure that you seal the jar with saran wrap between the jar and the lid. The elixir must not touch any form of metal during the digestion time. Double layer it if you must to make sure it's totally sealed. After that, unwrap the sealed jar and tin foil it completely. This will keep the light out of the elixir. You do not want to unwrap the tin foil until you're ready to calcine this. After that, you wrap the jar in silk. This keeps the energies from penetrating the elixir and tarnishing it. Egyptian cotton is even better, but a silk necktie will also work. When you are doing, what you're doing is using mercury of a planet, which is your alcohol, to extract the sulfur. Remember that when you're talking about alchemy, alchemical mercury is the spirit of the thing and what makes it alive. The lowercase mercury refers to the quicksilver element. It's a whole big thing. I'm not going to go into the whole... It's very confusing. But you let this mixture sit and digest for 2 weeks. By the end of 2 weeks, it should be a waning moon. You want to shake it thoroughly, once a day, by the way. Then, after those 2 weeks, that's when your calcination begins. You unwrap it, observe it. Be sure to have meditated beforehand to keep your state of mind neutral, since it doesn't have the protection of the silk or anything around it. So you want to make sure you do this in a separate room without sunlight. Bathrooms work really good for that. You want to prepare other mason jar and stretch the nylon stocking or cheesecloth that you want to use over the mouth of the jar. Put on rubber gloves because the tincture should not come in contact with your hands at all. Then you want to carefully unseal the jar, pour it into the stocking. The mercury and sulfur will fall through the stocking and the dead earth will be left in the stocking. Carefully squeezing the dead earth and extracting as much sulfur and mercury as possible. Seal the tincture in the jar and put it away for now. What they mean by dead earth is your herbs. So you need to take the dead earth and put it into a clean mortar and pestle. Recommending this be done outdoors in a well-ventilated area because the fumes can get a bit intense. Light earth on fire and let it burn until it goes out. You want to light this mixture on fire and let it burn until it goes out. And the stronger the alcohol, the longer it's going to burn. You want to be careful though, it will ignite quickly. Just the fumes alone can make it ignite, so you want to be very careful when you do this. And once that's done, you should have a small pile of gray ash. If you're lucky, it will burn to a light gray or a white. Now you must fire it with either a fire pit or a grill. So if you have a ceramic or a marble mortar, I have a marble one, and pestle, you should be fine. Do not put them into aluminum. So the calcination process, you want to be sure to watch it. Some of the ash can blow away. A slow and controlled roast will yield the best results than a shorter, violent one. Your goal is to roast the earth until it is white, or if you can, a red color. Red is harder, it takes longer, but white works too. Once it turned white, light gray, now you have obtained the salts in the purest form. Now you have the salts, the sulfur, mercury tincture. Like before, you have to put it together and digest it and let it digest for another 2 weeks. You want to shake it once every day. What is happening here is you have the sulfur and the mercury, but they also need a body to fulfill work. The salt provides the body. Remember that mercury and sulfur are only using the current form of alcohol and oil. They are not the alcohol and oil themselves, but those are just vessels they use in place of their plain existence. So, like I said, very complicated. But the final stretch. You want to take that digested tincture and open it up. You can pour put 1 or 2 coffee filters in a funnel, and the funnel in a dropper bottle, and you want to wear gloves again, per usual, and pour this tincture into the filters, into, the dropper bottles. And remember that the more you filter it, the less product you will have. But you should have more than enough to fill the bottle. Once it's filled, you'll discard the salts and seal the tincture. You put it away in a dark area with absolutely no light, wrapped in cloth, and then you want to let it sit for a few hours just to stabilize. And that's your final elixir. Now, with elixirs, people take them as well. It's a most potent medicine. It's one of the most potent medicines known in the world. Taking a single drop is the equivalent of drinking 4 gallons of strong tea. So an elixir must never be taken straight. You don't want to take it straight. Only take it straight when instructed by a higher alchemist, or if you're aware of the dangers, because this can only be taken like 1 to 2 drops in a glass of water or wine at a time. There are gem elixirs called crystal essences or crystal waters, and have been used throughout the ages. They are a convenient way to use the vibrational energies of a crystal for healing, magic, and more. And they're easy to make and can be stored for later use as well. You can use 1 crystal, several, or even several different types to make a gem elixir. Using multiple types creates a synergy blend, which is useful for bringing together the vibrations of several stones as more than the sum of the parts, so to speak. To make these, you're going to need whatever crystal you're going to be using, to imbue the elixir with. And then additional crystals if you're going to be using them. 2 clean glass or food-safe glazed ceramic containers that fit one inside the other with some room in between. Because what you're going to do is you're going to put your crystals in one part and your water in the other part. You're going to need 2 clean dark colored glass bowls. Dark blue or brown work really well. And then 1 larger and 1 smaller for the finished product. You'll need a clean glass eyedropper, either one that fits into a smaller bottle or just one that you can buy separately. Spring water or distilled water. Some prefer rainwater if you can collect it. Be careful with collecting rainwater on where you live, because you can go to jail for that. You'll need vodka or vinegar, and that's as a preservative for your to fix the crystal vibration. You need to have a calm and centered state of mind. So you want to meditate, do whatever it is you need to do to have a calm mind before you even start. Sunlight, moonlight, or a dedicated sacred space. This can be outdoors in a window where it gets sun or moonlight, or it can even be on your personal altar or other sacred place. To make this elixir, you're going to clear the crystals you'll be using. And you can also charge them if you want to. So you can take your prepared crystals and whatever other items you're looking for to make this elixir with. You want to center yourself and clear your mind of all concerns as much as possible. You can use prayer, breathing techniques, meditation, whatever it is you need to clear your mind of concerns. State your intent for the elixir out loud. Ask the divine and the crystals themselves for assistance with making this elixir for the highest good of all concerned. And then place the larger container you will be using to charge the water with the crystal energy, where you will be creating the gem elixir. Now, you'll place the crystals in a smaller glass container and seal it if possible. Alternatively, the larger container can hold the crystals, and smaller container the elixir. It reverse instructions. Place that smaller container into the larger one. Be sure that the smaller container is stable and isn't going to fall over, especially if you don't have it closed. And then you carefully pour as much water into the large container as you can without letting any water get into the smaller container. Optionally, you can arrange the additional quartz crystals or whatever around the outside of the container, pointing in towards the container, and use the center container for the pouring of your water. Again, you state your intent and ask for guidance from the crystals. You want to leave the container in sunlight, moonlight, or in a sacred space for 4 or more hours. After that, you remove the inner contents and carefully pour the charged water from the large container into things called stock or mother essences of gem elixir into the larger of your bottles, filling them halfway. You want to fill the rest of the bottle. You're going to make these and then fill them halfway up. You'll fill the rest of the bottle with your vinegar or your vodka, whichever you're going to be using to preserve it, and you seal it up. You can add a small portion of the preserved mother essence gem elixir to the smaller bottles for immediate use. You can use spring or distilled water if desired to distill it or use it straight. And thank the divine and the crystals for helping you create the elixir. You always want to say thank you. Clean everything that you've used, store it safely for future use, and you can dispose of the water the crystals were used with. My suggestion is always watering plants with them, because plants love crystal infused water. So you may want to try using those in your plants. Crystal waters can be made the same way for immediate use, with only 1 bottle for storage, and you don't have to add the alcohol or the vinegar for the preservative. These crystal essences can be stored for a few days in the fridge in a sealed container, but should be used quickly. You can also charge your waters with Reiki energy for healing if you wish. So I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with that. Soft stones should never be placed in water, as they may dissolve or melt. Anything with a hardness of 4 is likely to just disintegrate and dissolve. You can check regarding the hardness of stones by looking them up. For softer stones, rather than using water to hold them, you may tape them to the container where the stock or water is being made, or you can put them inside a bowl or a container inside the water, but not where it's touching the water. So that was some of the stuff I wanted to go over with tonight. Alchemy is a very deep subject that I probably will not ever get into on this show, just because it would be too hard to explain. Next week, I will be doing a show on Yule, because we are getting closer to Yule now. So I'm going to do a show next week on different ways to celebrate Yule, depending on how you celebrate. But easy ways, because I'm always looking for an easy way. I have a lot of health problems and can't do a lot of things and rituals and all this stuff. So I try to find ways that I can celebrate things and do things for these Sabbaths and holidays, and because Yule is a Sabbath, So, you know, I like to be able to celebrate and do things on these without absolutely going crazy at the same time. So, but that is our show for tonight. This show will be archived, so you can watch it at a different time if you want to take notes or whatever. You can also look up my Facebook group. It is Herbalism and More with Ravenwings. It is a group, so, you know, you can request to be added. I love it when you guys send me messages of hints for shows you'd like to see, things that you're interested in. You know, you want to tell me I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, whatever the case may be. You know, just send me messages, because I like messages. It's good to read messages. So, but I want to thank you all for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.